So, I want to talk about why you are never going to get through to an avoidant with your communication and what you're actually doing to yourself if you keep trying to do that. Because there's a lot of self betrayal that happens when you don't put the focus on your own needs and you put the focus on trying to reach or connect with or over explain anything when it comes to a dismissive avoidant. So, I want to dive into that. I want to help you get some clarity and I want to give you some actionable steps that you can take so that you can stop this pattern, so that you can have better understanding, and so that you can actually move in a different and new direction for yourself. If you're new here, I'm Ketra Thompson. And what I do with my clients is I help them reframe their core beliefs on a subconscious level so that they can finally create the life and the love that they want. We do that with custom hypnotherapy, relationship coaching, attachment style coaching, and really getting to the heart of what's driving the patterns in your life. So, if you'd like to learn more, you can check out the link in the description below where you can set up a completely complimentary consultation call so that you and I can chat and we can get to the heart of what's going on with you specifically, because this work is very personal and doing that custom one-on-one work gets you the results in a much more profound way. So you can set up that call, you and I can chat, and I can make my best recommendation. I also want to mention that in the link in the description below, there are also some other things. You can download my free hypnosis recording. You can take the self betrayal quiz to see where you land on that and get a free 3-step guide that's very specific as to steps you can take to break that pattern. And coming up very soon, there is going to be a new course being launched, so watch for that. All that information is there. So let's talk about the frustration of you over explaining. So, when you're dealing with someone who has a lot of shame wounds, now this applies to a lot of people, not just the dismissive avoidant, sometimes the fearful avoidant, people who fall on the scale of narcissism, but that deep shame wound is what keeps communication from happening. And so you bring up an issue that you just want to talk about. You want to discuss. You want to be heard. You want to be validated. And you want the other person to be curious about your experience and hold space for that. But it's not going to happen, especially with the dismissive avoidant. And the reason is two parts. First of all, they are so detached from their feelings and emotions on a regular basis that when they do feel, it comes in like a flood. Like someone has broken down a dam and all the water is just rushing in. And so they feel overwhelmed by their feelings and emotions and completely flooded. And so they cannot hold space for what you're trying to talk about. And the second part of this is because of the shame wound. They typically have a very deep shame wound, and a lot of people do, but theirs is a little different, and especially if they really haven't done any work to heal the shame wound. Now, they might have come to the belief or agreement that, kind of F off with the whole world. Like they can, go to hell. I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to chart my own course. I'm going to go my own direction. And they kind of think that that empowerment movement on their part is them not caring what other people think of them. And it actually isn't. It's a defense mechanism and it's a breakaway from the people pleasing tendencies, but it's not dealing with the shame wound. The shame wound is very, very deep. It started when they were very young and their feelings weren't validated. Their parents didn't necessarily hold space for their big feelings and sort of ignored them or dismissed them or were too busy with life or whatever. And they felt that they were not lovable if they showed these emotions. Those things weren't good about them. Those were bad. And the shame wound began to form. I'm not enough. I'm bad. I'm not lovable. If people really know all the parts of me, they won't love me. And so whenever you bring up something to someone with a deep shame wound that you would like them to contemplate, hear you out on, validate your feelings about, those are all perceived by them as criticism, and they're doing everything wrong, and you're never happy with them, and they'll never make you happy, and they can never do enough. And all of that is shame based. And so you cannot communicate once someone is emotionally triggered. And the shame wound is a big, big emotional trigger. And so because of that, they get flooded and they go into the fight or flight sensation, which actually pushes the blood in the frontal lobe of your brain out into your large muscle groups to prepare you to fight, to run, even to freeze. And so you actually don't have as much blood in the frontal lobe of your brain, which is what controls common sense. And so there's no communication that's going to happen. But if they haven't learned to be self-reflective and actually sit with those feelings, ponder, self-reflect, see what that's about, be curious about what their partner was trying to get at, then they aren't going to be able to repair either. So they're not going to come back to the relationship and have a conversation and say, hey, I was feeling this way. I felt judged. I felt like it wasn't enough. I felt like everything I do is taken for granted and I'll never be enough. And I know that's not what you meant. I'd like to hear you out and see how you're feeling and how those actions that you were bringing up of mine were affecting you. Like, that's not going to happen ever, because they aren't going to sit in the self-reflection process, because even the self-reflection process is very shame-inducing, and it can cause them to spiral into the narrative of resentment that goes both ways. The narrative of resentment, that all the list, the mental list they've made of everything that is wrong with you, they'll go down that checklist to justify their behavior, why you have issues with this and that and whatever. And on the flip side of that, they'll go into they're never good enough. They can't do enough for you. Nothing will ever be enough. They're always a failure. You're always complaining. Everything's wrong with the relationship according to you. And neither of those are a self-reflective place to be, where you're actually sitting with things, being curious about what the feeling is, where it came from, when you first felt it, if it's an old trigger, if it's really about this. Like, none of that's happening. So oftentimes the dismissive avoidant thinks they're healed because they have gone rogue in their own life and they've said, to hell with everyone else, I'm doing things my way. And they've gone into this full rebellion. And in reality, that rebellion, it's a way for them to avoid sitting with themselves and avoid that self-reflection process and avoid the reality of taking ownership over something that might be something they are doing that's harmful or hurtful to themselves, the other person, or the relationship as a whole, because they see themselves as all bad when they do that. Instead of saying, oh, I see why I do that. That makes sense. There's a pattern there. It was a protective function I didn't, have any control over when I was young, but I'm still doing it. It's no longer serving me. I can see that I'm not all bad. They don't do that. And so this rogue sort of do whatever I want thing is a way to avoid that and fool themselves into thinking that they're actually like empowering themselves, but they typically are not. So I hope that gives you a better understanding about why all of your over-functioning and over-explaining is not going to fix anything. It's just an absolute waste. It's, opening a brand new bottle of champagne that's amazing and just dumping it down the drain in an attempt to hopefully think that everyone else can enjoy it. Well, it's just it's not going to happen. You're not going to get any results from it. So the thing that you really need to do is you need to sit with why you are keeping the focus on them. You need to ask yourself, what is it you've been avoiding in your own life by focusing on this avoidant partner? The over-functioning, the over-explaining, that belief that if they just could understand this one thing, if they could just connect to me in this one way that they did in the beginning and now they're not, everything would be fine. Because that's actually an avoidant part of you, even if you're not a dismissive avoidant. It's that part of you that's trying to fix someone else in order for you to feel better. And so you've got to ask yourself how you've been betraying your own self. And how have you let go of your own dreams? How have you not cultivated a life that's fulfilling for you? And what's funny is sometimes when you ask someone who's been trapped in this dynamic for a long time, they don't even know what their own dreams are. They don't know what they really want. They're not thinking outside the box. And it's because so much focus and attention has gone on to addressing this stuff with the avoidant and trying to fix them and trying to explain and trying to get them to connect. They haven't focused on their own needs and what they want, what they need, and not just from their partner, but in life in general. And there's really this process of reframing those beliefs that got you into this situation in the first place into stepping into actually a personal freedom, a space where you expand what you thought you were supposed to do. You let go of the construct of what everyone in the world taught you was safety and security and what you needed in life. And you actually embrace the real you, what you really want, what you'd really like to do. And sometimes it's not perfectly clear because stepping into the unknown is just that. It's unknown. You don't know always what the next several steps are. You might only figure out what the next couple steps are. But the real work and success is in getting to the point of even contemplating it and taking those first steps, because there's so much programming that's keeping you held back, because the subconscious mind controls over 95% of everything you think, feel, and do. And it is primarily programmed with no discernment, while you have no awareness of why things are happening between birth and age 7. And then it is continually affected by complex trauma, big trauma, other things in life. But those belief systems are not put in there with discernment. When you're young, you just don't have the insight to know. All you know is the environment you've been put into. All you know is the way your parents react. All you know is your present environment when you're little. And if that environment doesn't cultivate being connected to yourself, being self-aware, being self-reflective, then you're going to have a really hard time letting go of those old beliefs, because that part of you that thinks, I need this person, I need them to choose me, I need them to validate me, I need them to be a certain way, is so externally focused that you rarely are aware of how to actually start meeting those needs on your own and with different resources in your life. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that you don't need those things from a partner. You do. You do need someone who can attune with you emotionally. And a dismissive avoidant does not attune with you emotionally. On a very rare occasion, they might have some empathy or concern for you. But when you're bringing up something that might be hurtful that they've done, or a behavior pattern that has to do with them, they're not attuning to you. They're being flooded. And so you have to be able to attune to yourself and get to that place where you are no longer externally focused on fixing or changing anyone else outside of yourself, but where you can learn how to start resourcing yourself in the way that you need to, because it's a lie to believe that you can just function on your own and solve all your own problems and never need anyone else. You do need other people. So basically, you can't keep trying to squeeze water out of a rock. It will waste your life. It will waste your energy. It will keep you from actually tuning in to the things that you need. And I can say this with so much confidence because I've done this process myself. And I've always believed I needed to be a certain way, and that I needed to show up in the world in a certain way and be a certain way for my children and my family and all of the things. And the truth is that the more I have been able to continually reframe that subconscious programming and attune to myself and my own needs, the clearer I'm getting about the phase of life that I'm in now. It doesn't mean I was wrong about the role I needed to play in the past, but it does mean that as human beings, we are ever evolving. And if we stay stuck in the same place that we were in the past, then we're stagnant in our own life. And so what I would hope for you to do at this point would to be like able to step into letting go of those attempts. And even if you have let go of the person that you were with, say you are not with the dismissive avoidant anymore, stop thinking about them. Stop ruminating about them. Stop thinking about how you could fix things, and start turning that focus back on yourself, your needs, tuning into how you're feeling, all of these things that can help you get that focus back onto you. And then, of course, to do that really deep subconscious reframing work, if you'd like help with that, you can always check out that link in the description so that you and I can have a consultation and you can change the patterns that have led you to this point in the first place. Because oftentimes what happens is if we don't get to that place of healing and letting go of even the resentment or anything we might have had to our partner who did not meet our needs, then you're going to be stuck in that same place. And then you're going to repeat the pattern with someone else who looks just different enough to make you think that it's a different pattern, but it's actually not. So if you'd like to learn more, again, check out that link. Let's set up that consultation call. I hope this was helpful in helping you to see that they are so flooded with shame that they are not ever going to hear what you're saying. And you are wasting so much of your time and effort trying to get someone who cannot function outside of that shame to be present and aware and self-reflective. And so again, if this resonates with you, I would really appreciate it if you would click like and subscribe so that you can be notified every time I post a new video. And until next time, I hope you curate a life by your own design.